generate some additional economic development for us. I think it's unfortunate that emotions sometimes run high in rezoning cases, and I don't doubt that somebody made allegations that are patently untrue about your company to further their initiative. But I will tell you that I'd love to see some of your products, because you certainly make them sound pretty outstanding. And again, we want to thank you for your investment in Columbus, and we appreciate you being here today.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Mayor, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody else who wants to speak in favor of the petition before we move to opposition?
Just a second. The city manager had a comment, I believe.
Mr. Mayor, like you, I'm interested in, I've listened to the owners here, and I too am interested in seeing some of their properties, and so I'm going to make sure that I ask staff to take some photos of their various properties and some of the work that they've done here in Columbus. And at the next meeting, I'd like to share those with you and members of council. I'm interested in the fact that he says he employs over 50 employees, and he's doing business with some company who's leasing his properties, and he and his wife spend 2 weeks out of a month here, and they're thinking about investing in property here. And certainly if they're doing great quality work, I'd be interested in just seeing what they're doing, and would be interested in seeing what they're talking about doing with this piece of property. So I'll make sure that staff do some work and share with you, the council, and the public exactly what they're doing in and around Columbus and all of these properties that they now own. And the fact that they obviously you have a business license here, and I'd just be interested in learning more about them and what they're doing here in Columbus.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you. Ms. City Attorney.
All right, anybody in the audience want to speak in favor? All right, anybody opposed? Come on up to the podium, give them your name and address, please, sir, for the record.
Mayor, Council, my name is Mike Johnson. I live at 2418 Peabody Avenue. I'm within the notification area of the home that's applied for rezoning. I'd like to start from dynamically, my little talk's going to change. I apologize if you feel like Waverly Terrace Historic Neighborhood Association has said anything derogatory about freaky fast investments, because that was not our intention at all. We factually stated what our intent was, to factually state statistics and known anecdotal information that we have in our neighborhood, where we have seen multifamily that's overcrowded houses that have drug issues, parking issues, city ordinance for no noise, that we live this in our neighborhood. Again, apologize. Nothing against freaky fast. So let me start with now what I wanted to say. They were gracious enough to send their manager, their local manager, and they escorted us around to some of their properties. We looked inside the properties, outside the properties that they did refurb. They look fantastic. We welcome Freaky Fast to Waverly Terrace Historic Neighborhood District. We want you there. The problem with this house is this. As y'all know and you've been told, we started working within our organization, within the Historic District Neighborhood Association in 2013. What can we do to improve this neighborhood? Because it had gone down. It's much better now than it was back then. One of the ideas was to effectively change rezoning. We started having internal meetings and thinking, how can we do this? And then we got with the Planning Commission. In 2015, we started that arduous process of getting over 25 homes rezoned from multifamily to single family, including this house that's up for rezoning today. The owner of that home at that time rented it out to a single family. It had been rented out to a single family for years. It did not have 3 families in it. Who came up with that floor plan? Who knows? But it was only to 1 family. And at that time, that owner agreed to and requested rezoning from multifamily to single family. Now, Councilor Thomas, I need to correct you. And that doesn't happen very often. The house you are thinking of is the wrong house. You're talking about the big, beautiful 2-story white house. The Freaky Fast home is across the street from there. It is a single story.
Across 29th Street.
On 29th, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. But it's much smaller, I think it's around 15 to 1,800 square foot. Y'all would know more than that. That's been subdivided into 3 residents. And I apologize to Freaky Fast that they got hoodwinked. When they bought that group of homes, sight unseen, they obviously were misrepresented what that home really was all about. So they were caught off guard, on their heels, and I understand that. But we worked for over 2 years with the Planning Commission to get this home rezoned to single family, and finally in 2017 it happened. Here we are in 2020. It does not make sense to revert it back. So I asked the board to deny this rezoning. But let me say to Freaky Fast, we want you in Waverly Terrace. There's over 50% of the homes are multifamily in Waverly Terrace. And we need you because you do quality work. You do guard against low lives and stuff like that. We get it. We get it. So this is not personal against Freaky Fast. We just don't want to take a step back from doing all that work for years and the Planning Commission helping us so well to take a step back and rezone this house from single family back to multifamily. It just doesn't make sense. So we want you to do work in Waverly Terrace on multifamily homes and rent them out to 12 people or whatever you got to do, but just not this house. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Anybody else out there want to speak? All right, come on up. Ma'am, give me your name and address, please, for the record.
First of all, my name is Libby Smith. I'm president of the Waverly Terrace Historic Neighborhood Association. Thank you for allowing us to come in support of our neighborhood. I want to reinforce what Mike just said. We have never intentionally said anything derogatory regarding Freaky Fast. We did, however, say that most of our problems in our historic district have come because of these historic homes being broken up, turned into apartments. You have people living there for short periods. They're rowdy. We've had problems with drugs, prostitution. It is better now, and we want to keep it better. Our goal as an association is to preserve this historic neighborhood, to protect it, to promote it, and to encourage ownership of these homes. The home that you're talking about, if you drive by it, it looks like a single-family home. There's one entrance on the front porch. There's a side entrance on what looks like used to be a side porch, and there's a rear entrance. There is a single driveway. With these historic homes, people didn't have a lot of cars. They're single driveways. It's a short driveway. That's the only driveway where you can park off-street. So it has been a problem with parking. But we would encourage you to help us to preserve this neighborhood, to restore it. We love these homes. Judy Thomas, she grew up there. She knows what beautiful work has been done on some of these homes. We encourage you to support us in keeping these homes and to encouraging other people to turn them into single families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Anybody else in the room that wants to speak for or against on this petition? Okay, Mayor, that'll close out this hearing. We will bring it back in 2 weeks. I think that's a 5:30 meeting, and we'll vote on this at that time. All right, the next item, Mayor, is the ordinance extending the state of public health emergency in Columbus, Georgia through October 10. That's consistent with the governor's executive order. Also allows virtual meetings and other responses as needed by the mayor. It's ready for adoption, can be done on one reading at this meeting.
Motion for approval from the Mayor Pro Tem and a second from Councilor Woodson. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Anybody opposed say no. All right, passes.
All right, that has passed. Next item was the non-discrimination ordinance notice that was brought back from a delay last time. I think Councilor Garrett wants to also make a motion for delay on this item.
Councilor Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to delay this indefinitely. I've heard from several counselors. I've actually heard from federal officials. I've heard from churches, schools, feedback in various instances, and I'd like to do the same thing we're doing on the subpoena power ordinance, where we get together a group, including some of the counselors who are opposed, some who are for it, and some of the business stakeholders as well. But I don't want to say a definite date this will come back on the agenda yet until we get that group together, because we did get feedback from the chamber, but I have not heard specific feedback. I'd also like to include possibly for the city attorney's office, if we could get maybe someone from the recorder's court judges, and then Ed Berry has worked with me, and Chief Judge McBride has worked with me some, if they want to send a representative as well. But I'd like to have somebody from recorder's court and superior court, because I think they had some concerns about the enforcement mechanisms.
Okay, we'll work with you on a list of those individuals and help you pull that together.
All right, we don't need a vote on that, Mayor. We'll just bring it back at the call of the counselor later on.
Councilor Davis.
Yes, man. I try to want to make this quick, but I got a couple things that are on my mind. And one, I don't want to have really not a discussion. It's just, I think last council meeting we had a long one and a lot of things that we were dealing with, and we made some decisions that night. Normally we have an opportunity when something comes on first reading, we can think about it. And I just, it's probably more of just the way I see it, and I'm more of a structure guy, not really deep into paperwork and things like that. And so I'd like to recall the mask ordinance that was passed for reconsideration, basically because I just want to change my position on it. And it's not that I'm not in support of it. I just feel like I just gave you the authority from an executive order standpoint, and I still think that is sufficient. An executive order is sufficient, and it's more streamlined and smooth and making changes as we go along. And that's what I'd like to do. And like I said, I'm not looking for discussion or anything. It's more of just an individual decision.
Well, we can certainly bring it up on reconsideration, but there may be a way in the timeline that's passed just to have Counselor Davis's vote changed by the clerk. Is that possible, Ms. City Attorney?
Well, we need to have a vote to allow the reconsideration, and then if council in their discretion wants to allow his vote changed, that would be permissible.
All right, well, there's a motion and a second to reconsider. Any discussion? All in favor of the reconsideration say aye. Anybody opposed say no.
No.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. In favor of the reconsideration.
reconsideration.
Counselor Davis, you need to raise your hand, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're in favor of the reconsideration, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, raise your hands again if you're in favor of the consideration. How many did you have? All 9? Okay. All right. Was anybody opposed? Because we heard a no. I guess that one changed. All right. Well, now we'll entertain a motion to on the mask ordinance.
Well, do we want to take a motion just to allow Counselor Davis to change his vote, or do we want to vote up or down on the entire mask ordinance? We can do either.
Counselor Garrett.
I was in the same situation as Counselor Davis, and when I walked back in the room, I didn't realize there wasn't a call for the public to speak, and I know of at least one business owner who came to speak about the mask ordinance and is back here today. That was a concern of mine, because when I walked right back in, I had no idea that no one had called for public discussion. I know somebody had been waiting at the front. I know he's here today again.
Well, we can I guess we can let somebody speak on the ordinance since it's reconsideration.
You can.
Okay. Well, if we have somebody here that wants to speak to it, come on up. State your name and your address.
Yes, sir. My name is Michael Dennehy. I own Chattahoochee Southern Brew House on 6th Avenue. My personal address is at 1510 6th Avenue, right across the street. Mayor Henderson and my councilwoman, Mimi, I would like to thank you for the time, and Mr. Garrett, thank you for bringing up the fact that we weren't able to speak on this last week. I apologize. I was unaware that I could just walk right up and speak. Start off by saying that Columbus has been absolutely great to us, and it has been a wonderful move. We've been here in business for about a year. Today I'm here to speak to you about the recent passage of that ordinance. And I tend to agree with what's already been said, which is there is an executive order that is in place, and now we have an ordinance on top of that. So it is essentially passed into law, this mask mandate. This is not what we see from our customers. What we see from our customers, which is about 2,000 customers a month, is not a push for more regulations when it comes to masks. I'll continue by saying I believe everybody here is dealing in absolute good faith. Multiple things can be true at the same time. We can be concerned about health and welfare, and we can disagree with enforcing a new ordinance which essentially gives police authority to enforce the mask mandate. So we do believe that is being dealt with in good faith, but I would say there's a little bit of cynicism on the street, because what I have seen for the second council meeting in a row is we start by saying that there's been great news on the front of COVID, and that is great, and everybody here wants that to be the case. But the good news on COVID the results are that there's additional requirements being put on small businesses and the community. So there's additional restrictions. So even despite the fact that there has been an improvement in the COVID, I just want to point out, I come from the state of New York. I chose to live down here in Columbus. I visit New York often. The policies that are going on in New York and the situation that's going on in New York, they're not matching up at all. And it's creating a lot of cynicism. Granted, we are not in New York. I understand that. I moved here for a reason, because I wanted to be down here in this community. But I would say multiple meetings now, we've started by saying, again, I'll repeat myself, that there have been, the numbers are good, the trends are down, but we're adding restrictions. And I don't see the need to add restrictions, not when we already have an executive order, like you pointed out, Councilman. What I'm asking for as a business owner and a resident is a SMART goal, SMART being an acronym. Specific, measurable, attainable with a realistic time frame. And that's what we don't see right now. A specific, measurable goal. What is the total caseload? What is that trend? Are we hearing that? I'm willing to support more ordinances. I absolutely am. I don't want to see anybody get sick. What I don't want to see is a rolling objective. City Manager, sir, a lot of respect for you and a lot of respect for the way you handle your business. What you brought up, I'd like to see us do something just like that, what you brought up as far as the crime prevention grants and how here are the questions we have and here are the businesses they apply to. I'd like to see that too. I'd like to see that on the temporary ordinance for masks. I'd like to know what the trend is. I think this is the great news, the second meeting in a row that the trend has been the caseload is going down. And I think that's wonderful news. So what is our specific goal? Do we want to see 4 weeks in a row, 2 weeks in a row of a downward trend? Do we have that specific goal? Is it measurable? What are the numbers total? What are the trends? Is it attainable? Of course it is. New York City, hundreds, if not thousands a day, and now they're having single digit, if not 0 days. So if New York City can get to that point, I know we can too here in the city of Columbus. I'm asking that the ordinances match up with that. I believe with this SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, and with a realistic time frame, that goal is going to build trust and get rid of some of the cynicism in the community. And there is. It's just me being honest. There is some cynicism. I'd like to point out the misery index, the CDC of the last 30 days, 40.9% increase in reported mental health issues, 30.9% of those respondents said they had anxiety or depression, 26.3% said they were suffering from trauma or stress, 13.3% began or increased their substance abuse, 10.7% considered suicide in the last 30 days. I'll repeat that, 10.7% have considered suicide in the last 30 days. There is a misery index that goes along with this. It's not just if it only saves one life. I would do any individual action if it would possibly save one life. But we need to take those numbers into consideration. The CDC also reported recently 99.96% chance that we're all going to be just fine. They dropped their recommended 14-day quarantine period for travel out of state. I want to go home and see my parents. I have dying parents. I can't because it's in New York State. Keep Georgia free, and I will stay here. I'll voluntarily keep staying here and pouring my money and my time. I can't go home to New York State right now. They won't let me. I have to sign up. I have to get approval to travel into the state. I have to check in with the local health ministry. And I've been told that people with Georgia plates will get pulled over and will be asked, did you register and how long are you going to stay here? I'm asking that we apply the exact same logic, and it was great logic, the exact same logic that we applied for the crime grants. Let's apply that to the ordinances. It may very well be necessary to add more ordinances until we get over this. I'm just asking that we have a goal, specific, measurable, attainable with a realistic time frame. And again, my name is Michael Dennehy. I voluntarily chose to move to Columbus, Georgia from New York. I'm proud to be your local brewery owner. Mimi, it's good to see you again, as always, ma'am. And all pending any questions you might have of me, I am done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, and just a couple things, Maya. By doing away with the ordinance, it still leaves the local executive order for the mask mandate in place. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Okay.
very much so.
And And just since you asked some specific questions, I'll try to answer those. We did the exact same thing you're talking about. We're trying to use some measurable goals, and we're trying to look at when we needed to enact something of this nature, if we needed to at all. And we were dealing with a couple of unusual circumstances that some of the cities in Georgia are not dealing with. One, we're a border state, or border city. So we've got Alabama just across the bridge. In fact, two of the counties that have been the hottest spots in Alabama are contiguous to Muskogee County. And they have a mask ordinance, a temporary mask ordinance right now. So we knew that there were a couple potential triggering events coming up. We knew that schools are going back in session, and we anticipated an increase in the impact on our numbers. We knew that universities were going back. We knew that we've passed Labor Day weekend. We'll know over the next probably 10 to 14 days whatever impact that had. Hopefully that'll be negligible. And we knew they're going to be getting back involved in some of the sports like high school football and some things that we can't control. So we knew that all of these things should manifest themselves because we watched the numbers from some of the cities in Georgia that had enacted a mask mandate. And we looked at how long it took for there to be any impact on their numbers. And without exception, when we looked at Athens, when we looked at Augusta, when we looked at Savannah, we saw that it was really about 2 to 4 weeks before they started seeing any trending in their numbers going down. And of course, you can't attribute all that to the masks, but you mentioned something that resonated with me because it's the way I feel. If there's something that we can do, and on one hand it hurts some people's feelings of having to wear a mask because they have allowed it to become something it's not, and that's a political weapon in all this, and I have a chance to save one person's life, is it worth doing that? And I get that council doesn't want to cast a vote on this because it is. It's a very difficult decision because you got some very vocal people who are advocating things that on the surface make sense. However, when you take a look at if we can make it through the first week or so of October, after all of these triggering events, then we've been successful. And our goal is not the new cases. We watch the cases, but we understand that the cases are impacted by the number of tests. They're impacted by the reporting mechanism that takes place. And we watch the cases more so for how they're trending versus the tests that are given. They are looking better. But the number we focus on is the hospitalization rate, because that's where kind of the rubber meets the road. If we end up in a situation where we have exhausted the resources to take care of not just COVID patients, but for anybody else who's dealing with another illness that requires hospitalization and acute care. The interesting thing is that the ICU beds are probably less available than they have been, and yet our COVID numbers are plateaued. We're staying at 50, which, by the way, is still higher than our highest point in April when we had our surge. So from our perspective, we don't do anything without talking to our health department, without talking to the CDC, and we use science. We take the information they give us and try to look around corners, which is impossible to do. So we had a choice to make with regards to the mask mandate of turning the water off after the tub has already overflowed, or turning it off before we end up at capacity and we end up in a situation where we're shipping our people out to other hospitals. Now, I'm hopeful that reality does not come to fruition. But I think that it's the responsibility of elected officials to make decisions that to some are not going to make them happy. But by far, the people that we hear from, they understand. They understand that the mask is an inconvenience for the bulk of us to try to protect those that may end up carrying something home. We talked to the school district. We talked about masks with them because we understood that prior to school going in session, if you get everybody comfortable wearing these things from time to time, it's less likely that they're going to take something home to mom, or something to grandpa and grandma. And so we still are going to have that mask mandate in place. I think all we're trying to do is, some of the counselors have decided that I think that they may not want to vote for it, and that's fine. But we still are going to have to deal with this. And in addition to that, there are still requirements in the governor's order that exist whether we have that mask mandate or not. Businesses like yours, your folks, if they're interacting with customers, are still required to wear a face covering.
And they do.
Your folks are still required that if anybody comes in, they're not supposed to stand at the bar. They're supposed to have places to sit.
Right.
If they can't sit, they can't stand at the bar. They have to go to a designated area for service. If we could get, and you've done a good job. I've been to your establishment. I love what you're doing.
You were my very first sale.
Yeah, I was. But if we could get, and I've met with the bar owners from Uptown, and we've notified them that if we could just get people to comply with some of the regulations that are already in place, whether we have a mask ordinance or not, we could mitigate the spread of this stuff. And I just want to make sure you understood that the mask ordinance doesn't go away, even if some of the councilors have reconsidered their vote.
I do, Mr. Mayor, and I think I failed to express where I feel some of the negativity towards it. I don't mind wearing a mask. I think what I personally mind and the customers are what is the criteria for success for us? We're not hearing that. We're not hearing, this is the chart in New York City right now. And I pay attention, again, you've heard it several times. It was 1,200 deaths a day. Yesterday it was 0. What is our criteria for success? I will wear the mask, and I do believe that this is government in sunshine, and I do believe you are dealing with us in good faith. I'm very comfortable with you exercising that executive authority. We're asking, as a public, what is the criteria for us to say, we have beaten this is success? And is it realistic to say that there will never be another COVID-related death in Columbus ever? No, it's not realistic. So that's what I come to you. I understand completely that there is going to remain Governor Kemp's executive order as well as your own, which we willingly comply with. I'm asking, can we set a criteria by which we will say our goals have been achieved, that we can all agree on, so that you can give us some hope for the future, so that we can look at it and say, we're getting there. Right now, we're not getting that positive feedback loop. I don't know what the goals are. I don't know when we would be able to say we can take the masks off. And I'm sure we all want to take them off. I'm sure all of us do. So.
No, I agree. Trust me, I want to take them off too.
So that's
and you did bring up a very good point. We discussed last week about pulling together a panel made up of medical folks, not folks sitting around here, not folks working in the government, to do a virtual town hall and allow people to ask and let them talk about where we are, bring in people from the Department of Public Health so that folks do have a clear picture of where we're headed. So I appreciate that constructive criticism. We'll look into that.
I appreciate the unscheduled time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else want to be heard?
Mayor, if I might add to that, I just want everybody to understand we're not eliminating the mask mandate, okay? And that was very clear to me the night that it's kind of challenging to ask the questions, and we did everything at the table that night. But you said basically it didn't really matter what council does anyway, that you're going to make that decision. I'm okay with that because I've given the mayor's branch the executive order 3 times now, and I just did it again. And I'm okay with that. I think it needs to be smooth, streamlined, simple, and that's really, kind of my thought process behind this. But I do agree that people need to consider the safety not only for themselves but others in the situations. And I just feel like it would be much better when it's the decision. We're not privy to a lot of information, but when the decision is made that it's time to make a change, I trust that you'll make the decision just as you did in implementing the executive order.
So the only thing we're just trying to be consistent. I know in March when we had some restrictions, we actually got out in front. We were about the second city to do it. We got out in front of the governor. I think I believe I'm right. It was about the second week of March. We put some restrictions on some businesses. We shut down gyms. We shut down barbershops. We shut down bars, and we put maximum number of people. Council voted on that. And that was because we looked at this as a holistic approach to try to keep our community safe. So we were following the same protocol that we did last time because we felt like I'm happy to take that heat. I'm happy to jump out there and do what I think needs to be done. But we had always, in the past, we'd kind of worked together. And so that's the model that I was following. I didn't know that it had changed, but we're happy to do whatever council wants to do. To that end, we've got a motion and a second, I think. We do not have a motion, do we? We already pulled it up for reconsideration. Do we have a motion to defeat or to approve the mask ordinance? Hang on. Yes, ma'am.
We have a motion and a second to just allow Councilor Davis to change his motion.
Okay, and then I think Councilor Garrett had some issue with that.
Right, and
Garrett.
City Attorney Fay was asking, did you want to do a
I just want to make
revote?
sure my constituent could speak, but speaking to his point and to Councilor Davis's point, I trust you, Mr. Mayor, on your decision on this. Is there a way we could amend the motion so that rather than us having to go through a first and a second reading or meet for council, because it could happen, you could get the data to give you reason to, in late October and November, to want to repeal your executive order. Is there a way we can amend the current ordinance so we can still vote in support of it, but let's say it's on a Monday afternoon and we don't meet for 2 more weeks, that we can give you authority to go ahead and repeal it even though it's an ordinance?
And I think that you've already given the mayor's office that authority, and I think that's
Okay.
Councilor Davis. What we had done, though, is anytime we make some kind of decision that's going to impact the entire community like that, I mean, we wanted to make sure that we were including council in that decision and in that information. So as it stands right now, if when we get to the 10th, when that executive order state of emergency expires, it's very possible that we will decide that the need for the mask ordinance is no longer. And if that happens, if we're not going to meet right away, we'll do just what we did this last time, and we'll do away with it and then ratify it through a vote of council.
Okay.
Mayor, one more point on that. If we get below 100 cases per 100,000 people for 2 weeks, then the governor's executive order threshold would not be met anymore. So
That's correct.
Okay.
His authorization for us to have that mandate is predicated on a calculation of how many positive cases per 100,000 for a 2-week period.
Okay. Well, you direct the police, so as long as you tell them to not enforce it, that won't be an issue.
Well, we have a motion to allow Councilor Davis to change his vote. Is there any conversation? I'm sorry, Councilor Tucker, is this to the motion?
I was actually wanting to respond to the non-discrimination ordinance.
Okay, I'll come back to you. I'm sorry. All right, well, we have a motion and a second to allow Councilor Davis to change his vote. All in favor of that, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, vote's changed.
all right, we had one more slight amendment that I thought Councilor Davis wanted to offer on the ordinance itself. Do you still want to offer that, Councilor?
Hang on. There you go.
I do want to make a motion, since again, we did everything pretty quick last council meeting. Upon thinking about it a little bit more in detail, I do want to make a motion to amend. I don't think that, well, first of all, our citizens should not look at this as a punitive implementation of a matter where we're looking to generate revenue on it, okay? But currently, the way the ordinance reads, if anybody gets fined, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's got fined. I don't know if any citations are written. I'm hoping not, that we can communicate and just get people to develop good habits. But if so, I don't think that money should go into the general fund. I think it should go towards the police department, EMS, for personal protection equipment or something. It should be used on the matter that we're talking about. So nobody thinks that if they did get a citation and they have to pay a fine, that the money goes to a purpose versus going into the general fund, which is then, to me, it becomes a way to generate revenue.
Mayor, we've got a short amendment we can read into the record that Councilor Davis would like to see passed. This goes to the civil penalty nature. It reads like this. It would be a new section 3. Any civil penalty collected pursuant to sections 1 or 2 of this ordinance shall be deposited into an account designated for purchase of PPE approved by the Director of Fire and EMS. Again, this is just a civil penalty.
Okay. Is that a form of a motion?
I make a motion.
All right. And for the record, I have no problem with that. I mean, with regards to enforcement of this ordinance, we have, again, the governor says the first contact will be a warning. So we've outfitted our police and our sheriff's deputies with masks, and they have been proactively and aggressively handing the masks out when they see somebody not in compliance. But to my knowledge, there have been no citations written. So as we want them to come, and we agree with you. We don't want this to be viewed as a punitive action. We want it to be part of an urging of compliance. And so far, I think in most areas, that's the way it's kind of coming across. So we do have a motion. Is there a second?
You want me to read it, Councilor?
Mr. Mayor,
What?
for clarification purposes, was this an amendment to ordinance listed as number 3 on the city attorneys, or is this?
No, this will be a new section 3 inserted into ordinance number 20-043. And I'll read it one more time at Councilor Thomas's request. Any civil penalty collected pursuant to sections 1 or 2 of this ordinance shall be deposited into an account designated for purchase of PPE approved by the Director of Fire and EMS. That's it.
Okay. And there was a second. I think Councilor Crabb seconded it. All right. So there's a motion second. Any discussion to it? Councilor Crabb, did you?
Yes, I seconded it so I could have this discussion.
Okay.
Why have a fine anyway? Can we just take the fine out?
Well, that's a discretionary call for council to debate some more. I mean, we have a civil penalty in section 1 and 2, and the maximum is $50.
Can we just remove that completely?
Well, I think council can do whatever they wish, but I don't think that's the appropriate way to move forward, just from my personal opinion. I think if you're going to have a whether it's an executive order, whether it's an ordinance, it has to have some kind of punishment.
But you yourself said that no citations have been given and that you're encouraging the police department to hand out masks.
We're encouraging them to comply with the governor's order, which the first contact is a warning where they give them a mask. And we haven't, to my knowledge, issued any citations, which would indicate that the folks, after they talk with them, are coming into compliance. Now, you know, we made it clear, too, that we recognize that enforcement is a challenge. We've got an understaffed law enforcement agency, so they're not out there roving around in mass task force where they're looking for people. But it's kind of like, I told somebody, it's kind of like speeding. If they're doing their job and they see somebody speeding, they stop them and they issue them a ticket. Same thing, if they're out during their regular beats and somebody is not in compliance, they're going to give them a mask and say, hey, you know, there's an ordinance, you got to comply. And then if that person just throws it back at them, says, I'm not wearing it, then they'll issue them a citation.
Okay.
Councilor Woodson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I have to express my concern. I don't see a problem with the fee. I don't see a problem with the ordinance. It's already an executive. We're not, like you said earlier, we're all not going to agree, but some of the constituents feel more comfortable with an ordinance in place than just an executive order. To me, it's the same thing, either or. Our police department has been very kind and generous and understanding, haven't gotten any citations. I'm a little bit concerned now that we dedicated to one area. I hope citations don't become more priority now to be funded. I have all the faith in the police department. I love them. I've always supported all they wanted. That's why I supported that. But I think that if we keep pressing on these situations, we're going to make a situation that doesn't exist now. We're not, forcing it by just saying, please wear a mask, and we give you a mask. We're not doing citations. There's no money coming into the budget. I hope we're not creating a situation by just trying to make all these changes for something that's going to be probably voided pretty soon here. I'm just beginning to get concerned. I know a lot of people that are happy that we have the mask ordinance. There's businesses that really, if they're following the rules, there's not a problem. It's a time, it's different, but it's going to be okay. So I just had to express that. I hope we don't take this ordinance or this executive order and melt it down to just say, do whatever you want, and our community is not protected anymore. There are some of us who suffered from this disease and are still paranoia, and it wasn't fun. And for those that haven't experienced this, with all due respect to you, we respect your opinion, but also respect those citizens that are concerned about catching it. And so, Mr. Mayor, I might get slapped in the hand or whatever, but I support in what you're doing, and I think you are looking for the best interest of our community. And I respect you for it. And I just had to stress that because I was starting to get anxiety. Let's stop this, let's stop that, let's stop this. Our community is doing fine. Let's not make so many changes where our numbers are going to go back up again.
Okay, and I will say this. I did just get word that if we do earmark that fine to go to a certain place, that is going to create a fairly sizable challenge for staff to be able to track certain types of cases through the courts. So it appears that, number one, I don't think there's going to be that many. I don't think we're going to have a rash of fines. But I think an amendment to that ordinance that says it's just going to set staff up, I think, for some challenges to try to get that tracked. That's for y'all's information. Councilor Crabb?
Based on that statement right there, I rescind my second.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, so there's a motion to approve with no second as of yet. Councilor Barnes, did you have a... I think what... Yes, sir, I may need the city attorney's help. There was a motion to amend the existing ordinance that said that any of the civil fines that are levied would go towards PPE for our first responders, which is an admirable goal. But staff has indicated that even for a relatively small number and a relatively small amount, it still creates a very serious challenge to track that money. So Councilor Crabb has rescinded her second to the motion. So right now, if nobody seconds it, it'll die for lack of one. Okay, hearing no second, that motion dies.
All right. Well, with with that action, Mayor, the ordinance 20-043 will stay on the books as adopted.
Okay, and that Councilor Tucker had a question on the earlier discussion on the NDO. Councilor Tucker?
Yes, I was asking to be on the committee as an individual who is for the non-discrimination ordinance.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. City
All
Attorney?
right, Mayor, we have one more business item. This is a resolution that would authorize, approve, and ratify execution of a grant agreement with FAA, the Columbus Airport Commission, and the city as co-sponsors here locally for about $1.3 million worth of improvements at the terminal. And Counselor for the local airport commission, Don Morgan, is here. Is Ms. Clark here? Ms. Amber Clark is here if there are any questions, but this is just FAA wanting us to be a co-sponsor. The city will be held harmless by the airport commission for any obligation.
Motion to approve by the Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilor Garrett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Anybody opposed, reply with no. All right, it passes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morgan, Ms. Clark. Mayor, we need an executive session on personnel and litigation that hopefully will be short, but that's all we have listed.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll move to the public agenda. And I think we've got one individual. Attorney David Helmick, representing Waldrop, Mullen, and Callahan, to permit the direct hiring of police by establishments serving food and alcohol, and also the expansion of the downtown security detail into the 1200 block of Broadway. Mr. Helmick, welcome. You'll give your name and your address, and then we'll start the clock, and you've got 5 minutes, and I'll warn you when you've got 1 minute left.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Henderson
Yes,
and Council. David Helmick, 1100 Laurelwood Road. I do represent, want to be clear, I represent James Isaac, my client here at Aiden Restaurant and Lounge. So this is a client-related matter. This council has worked through and been involved in some tough policing questions lately, and we as a country certainly have and continue to. This is not one of those questions. Want to be very clear about that. We are here to talk about increased security for the Aiden Restaurant and Lounge, and in particular the 1200 block of Broadway. We are trying to increase the safety for all of the uptown customers and clientele, particularly the 1200 block, and at the same time increase pay to police, which will hopefully be a benefit to our police officers, providing security to Aiden and similar establishments like Aiden. So a little bit of background before I get back to the original question, which will be permitting direct hire of police for security purposes at restaurant/bars like my client, Aiden Restaurant and Lounge. At the downtown, the core of the downtown blocks on Broadway, at the 1000 block of Broadway and the 1100 block, these businesses enjoy wonderful, wonderful security through the Columbus Police Department, as arranged also through Uptown Columbus. We do not want to change that. We want those businesses to continue to enjoy that exceptional security, which is wonderful for Uptown and wonderful for their establishments. The issue for us, for my client, is that benefit, that security does not extend to the 1200 block, which is where Aiden is located. So when you have customers going downtown later into the evening, you will have a great security presence at, again, the 1000 and the 1100 blocks, for instance. When you go to the 1200 block, though, it is not there. And so as a customer and as a general public, you feel less safe, if you will, in that area with a decreased presence than you do in the other ones that have this wonderful security. So we're trying to level that playing field so you don't have other businesses having, favoritism is not the correct word, but we want the appearance to be all the same, the security to be consistent throughout those various blocks without taking anything away. So then we have that, and then we have the issue about direct hires. So shifting to just simple direct hires of police officers at an establishment such as Aiden that does sell alcohol and also sells food is if you have 49% of alcohol sales at your establishment, you are permitted to directly hire police to work at your establishment. But if you have 51% of alcohol sales, you cannot. So we stand here before this council to request, and before Mayor Henderson, to request that be changed. So Aiden Restaurant and Lounge, certainly any establishments like Aiden, can have direct hires of police officers to increase security at their establishment and in their general area, and to just improve their businesses all in all. So we think that this is a win-win. We're asking for the support of Mayor Henderson and the council for that. My client, Mr. Isaacs, is involved in similar establishments in Atlanta that are permitted. They are permitted to have this direct hire of police officers, and it benefits them, and it benefits the customers, and it benefits the businesses all in all. So we think that this is a win-win. We're asking for support of the council to level the playing fields and to have this great security everywhere throughout Uptown, to the benefit of all the customers at Uptown and all the businesses. So I think I even have a few seconds left, but that will conclude my presentation. But I certainly want to make sure that we've answered any questions that the Mayor Henderson or Council may have.
Hey, Mr. Helmut, there are a few questions, and we'll get to those. But a couple of points I want to make is you mentioned that the security provided through the Columbus Police Department, coordinated by Uptown. It's actually provided by Uptown, Inc., who contracts with the Columbus Police Department to patrol that entire area to kind of provide security. And you and I have had this conversation. I think the challenge is a long-standing practice that on the surface I agree with, and that is that a police officer hired directly by a club, and your client is licensed as a restaurant and a lounge, but I think it's pretty obvious towards the end of the evening which activity kind of takes precedent. And our police department has never contracted directly with a bar or with a lounge, mainly because of I think one of the biggest concern they expressed was the appearance of conflict of interest. If they're working at a bar and somebody comes out and they might have had too much to drink, and that's obvious, that puts the police officer who's employed for that moment by the lounge in sort of a tough spot. One of the things I suggested to you, because if I remember, Uptown did not have the budget, I think, to cover that entire area. And one of the things I think you and I talked about, and I don't know if this is possible, it may not work, we'd have to ask to the city attorney, but where perhaps since Club Aiden is going to be funding this for themselves anyway, would it work if they just paid for the additional cost of hiring additional officers by Uptown and then let them patrol that other end? I don't know. I'm trying to help you guys come up with some solutions, because it appears to me that the big issue is with Uptown.
And if I may, Mayor, I did also speak to Uptown. I spoke to Mr. Lunsford. He was very helpful, but the police department was not willing to break up the officers already providing security there and allow them into the 1200 block. They are keeping them in that specific vicinity, which excludes the 1200 block in my client. So
wasn't that if, I'm sorry, wasn't that if they had just the same number of police officers? What if because if your client was going to hire a couple of extra, why would you not hire those extra and let them, and maybe that's what they were objecting to. It's first I've heard of that.
Well, and there was a discussion about my client paying for all of it, and it was going to come at a very, very large cost. I'm not going to put the financial figure on the record here, but suffice to say that the simplest way of streamlining all of this and that we're asking for is just to permit us to hire one, for instance, directly. And I understand the issue about a bar, a traditional bar, but again, I get back to the point of even if we had 49% alcohol sales, we would be able to hire directly. So please go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. So if you had 49% of alcohol sales.
Correct. Okay. So we get to this line that I think doesn't serve a purpose. This what I call it an arbitrary line where a business like Applebee's, which also serves a large amount of alcohol and food, can directly hire Columbus Police and pay Columbus Police directly, where Ayden cannot, just because of this 50-50 line, where other areas have looked at that and do permit direct hires for situations like ours.
Councilor Barnes, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. David, could you just repeat for me your request? That's one. And secondly, I'll let you find out from the city attorney what would preclude that happening.
Thank you, Councilor Barnes. Our request is to permit the direct hire of police officers for security purposes, okay, for the Ayden Restaurant and Lounge, and certainly any businesses that are in that same situation as Ayden is, whether that be zoning or whatever. Just allowing the direct hire of police officers, Councilor.
Right. And so I'd like the city attorney to respond to that, to see if what are the obstacles to something like that happening.
Well, Councilor, the request goes against the long-standing policy of the police department of letting its employees also work off-duty for an alcohol establishment in the category of bar or nightclub. That's just a policy of the police department. And I think the mayor alluded to that long-standing policy. It would have to be changed, and that would certainly be a matter for deliberation.
So basically what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just a Department of Police policy that's precluding that? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then why don't we, what I would like to do, and I think that what you're saying, David, is it makes common sense to me.
Yes, sir.
And I've never been one to discuss something as a policy to preclude change. And so could we get somebody from the police department so we can discuss this here and find out if there's any salient reason why something like this can't happen? Because it's affecting a certain area of downtown, and of course, it does impact his business, because if a person doesn't feel safe, they're not going to go. To me, I think we're cutting off a nose to spite our face if we don't at least consider that, because if we want to be bringing revenue into the city, to me, it just makes common sense. And common sense, to me, a lot of times trumps a lot of policy that we might need to review. So let us do that. I would like to make that. Can I make that a motion?
We'll just get a group together. We'll get the police chief, and
yes,
and we'll have a discussion about it. We'll see if we can't get the parties together and find out exactly what the reason is.
I think it does. Yes.
And I'm only saying because it just stands to reason for two reasons. If we're going to be encouraging people to come into uptown We need to make sure that they feel comfortable. If they're not feeling comfortable, then it's two things. We're not getting the revenue from it, which is cutting off our nose to spite our face because of a policy. And so I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, if we do that.
We'll do that, because there's got to be some reason they had that policy in the first place.
That's right.
Dave, we'll do that. We'll give you a call, and we'll try to, we'll socially distance, maybe meet in my office or something. We'll talk about it. We'll include Council Barnes.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council. Unless there are any other questions?
Oh, there is. Councilor Woodson.
Well, I just wanted to suggest to the mayor to get, I'm not sure if it was the finance department or who was it. I think this is a federal law that came down where you couldn't hire police officers directly any longer. Because I ran into that similar situation on another case. So I'm happy to be interested to see what happens, but I just wanted to bring that to somebody's attention. I don't know if it was the city attorney that told me that, but I know a situation like this had came before, and they said it was a federal law or a state law that came down where we can hire police officers personally. They have to go through an agency or something.
We'll get it answered, Councilor.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
David, I think that's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. City Manager, your agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few items and then several updates. First, Mayor, I know that Mr. Larry Campbell is here from the retiree group, and just to acknowledge him and he can step forward. I think this should be an easy one. To let you know that we considered two vendors. They made bids for health coverage. We had Anthem Insurance and United Healthcare. United Healthcare presented another strong bid for coverage for calendar year 2021. The post-65 retiree health insurance costs will be reduced by 22% in 2021, and there are no plan design changes. And so a note is that when a reduction in plan cost means the cost for the city will be reduced by 22% in 2021. The retirees' monthly premium rate will be $101.25 a month for the city subsidized retiree group, hired prior to July 1, 2001. I'll say that twice. The retirees' monthly premium rate, for those listening, will be $101.25 a month for the city subsidized retiree group, hired prior to July 1, 2001, and $135 for the unsubsidized retiree group hired on or after July 1, 2021. So $135 for the unsubsidized retiree group hired on or after July 1, 2021. The out-of-pocket maximum will remain at $1,000 annually. The out-of-pocket maximum will remain at $1,000 annually. Because of the United Healthcare's competitive bid, their excellent customer service, stability, and consistency, it was determined to remain with United Healthcare, and we're asking you to approve moving forward with this.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no.
Mr. Campbell, did you want to make any comments?
Mr. Campbell, welcome.
Not good morning. Good afternoon. It's hard to believe it's been a year since I was here, or not here, but you get the idea. I do want to take a moment to say that, we appreciate the efforts of council, and this has been a strange year to say the least. And I want to especially thank Retha and the folks at HR, and then the working with the committee the committee members and her staff and the folks with Shaw, it's not Shaw Hang, it's NFP, is that right? Yeah, NFP that work with the committee in putting together this proposal and the helping us work through the process. It's a great year for the retirees and that we're going to save a little money. It's good for the city and good for the employees. And again, we're especially happy with the $1,000 out-of-pocket maximum. So that's a great plus for the retirees. We look forward to another great year with the association and the retirees and working with Retha and her folks. And I look forward to seeing you all again next year. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you.
And I do, Mayor, want to thank our HR Director, Retha Hollowell, and our consultants. This is about the third year or so that I've been able to share this good news with you, and the retirees have been able to enjoy the good news, Mr. Campbell, because they've had no increase. They've had, in fact, a decrease, as you can see here. And so, as Mr. Campbell said, it's good for the retiree and it's good for the city as well. So, thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for all of your years of service here in the city.
Appreciate it. It's been an honor. Thank you all.
The next item, Mayor and Council, I've got is a donation of 2 file cabinets to.
Motion to approve and a second. I think the motion was from Councilor Crabb and the second was Councilor Woodson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. That's approved.
And, Mr. Mayor, we'd like to say thank you to the Riverdale Porterdale Cemetery Foundation, Inc., for this donation. The third item I have today is the fiscal year 21 Local Government and Improvement Grant. We know it as LMIG. And we're requesting approval to submit an application and accept the FY21 Local Government and Improvement Grant from the Georgia Department of Transportation. The proposal is to use the funds toward the intersection improvement along Buena Vista Road.
Motion approved from Councilor House and a second from Councilor Crabb. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say no. That passes.
And that's at the Columbus Spider Web. Got a few purchases. I've got playground mulch on an as-needed basis, estimated contract.
All right, there's a motion for Councilor House and a second for Councilor Woodson to move A through D. Anybody need any of those pulled for further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. Mr. City Manager, if you would read through those, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
They are approved.
Again, playground mulch, electrical fixtures, parts and supplies on an as-needed basis. We've got contract extension for pest control services through November 30th of this year. And then traffic sign materials on an as-needed basis for an estimated annual contract value of $50,000. I've got a few updates, Mayor. You've heard from the quality control team update. I've got Georgia Power electric vehicle charging stations. I'm going to ask Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin to come forward with that. And then we will have Riverwalk, Gabion Wall replacement. And then we'll have a brief sales tax update for the month of July. And then we'll have a CARES Act update. So,
okay.
Deputy City Manager Goodwin.
I think Mr. Watkins is here from Georgia Power as well.
Yes.
We've got one counselor very quickly. Councilor Davis?
Mr. City Manager, if you would, before you go into your presentations, if you'd allow me to just say a few words on the matter, and it kind of, the opportunity kind of came up just looking at the GOT LMIG. I've been receiving a lot of calls on a matter, and I don't think a lot of people are familiar with this, but there is scheduled, I think it's on pause right now, it's on the back burner, but I received a lot of calls where it's scheduled to rebuild a bridge out on River Road. It's past Biggers Road. There's a section of the road that I remember back when the first time I came to Columbus, goes 40-plus years ago. It was some of the one spot in this whole community that really, really touched me because it was just so beautiful. I mean, it was just like riding through a cavern of trees, a cave of trees there. But there's a section there that's really scenic, and I think everybody knows the area I'm talking about. You got large, majestic trees there, just beautiful trees. It's just a gorgeous piece of highway. Well, there's a bridge there that's going to be replaced by DOT. Now, I've been told that there's some discussion going on. It's on pause right now, and they're trying to figure out how to make it work. But in constructing a new bridge there and replacing that bridge, it would take out a large majority of the scenic highway and those trees that's there. It's just a beautiful stretch of trees. I think they're going back to relook at that and maybe trying to find some options. But the reason I bring it up here is I would hope that our staff, I don't even know if our staff was aware of it. Maybe they knew the bridge was going to be replaced, but to what detail, maybe not. But I would hope that our staff would maybe confirm that about our concerns about that section of highway, and that they could maybe find a way to do it in such a manner that it wouldn't impact and we'll never be able to have that portion of highway again the way it is today. So I'm hoping that we can encourage them to do that. I know they're relooking at it, but I needed to say that because I don't think any of the council members, Mayor, you may not even be aware of it, but that is a concern. It's a concern of mine, and probably most everybody in the community. If you've driven out that way, it's just a gorgeous area, one to be remembered.
Yeah, I did receive some calls on it, and you're right. It's one of the last remaining true canopies that you drive through, and it's one of the prettiest pieces of a very pretty drive heading out there. I do know that some of our state legislators are looking at it because of the beauty and what it adds to the community. So. I think it's a great request. If our staff would just look and see if there's anything that we could put with it supporting some type of alternative measure to that bridge. So thank you for bringing it.
And Mayor, just to give input or just keep us updated on what's going on so we don't have to make calls all the time and worry.
Thank you, sir. All right, Deputy City Manager Goodwin.
Thank you. We are pleased to be able to partner with Georgia Power through their community charging program. If you recall, we do have currently 2 fast charging stations located at the corner of Broadway and 11th Street. Those stations were installed back in 2015, and they were donated by Headquarter Nissan. And so we're excited to be able to, when we even got those in, we were very excited, of course. But within the last year or so, they have not been operational due to software network issues, and through Green Lots, they were not able to continue that particular station, and that one as well as others that they have had installed due to cost, low-performing stations. But now that we are looking to partner with Georgia Power, there are some great opportunities for that to be restored as well as others. And so with that, I'd like to introduce to you Lisa Smith, who is the West Region Vice President of Georgia Power, and she has a team with her who's going to share with you what those opportunities are. And so with that, Ms. Smith.
Lisa, I apologize. I did not see you sitting over there.
No,
besides, Robert paid me,
apologies
didn't mention his name. So.
Oh, no apologies. Everybody knows Robert. So thank you, Deputy Goodwin. To the mayor, to City Manager Hughley, and all of the council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am Lisa Smith, Vice President for West Region for Georgia Power. With me, I have Robert Watkins, who is our External Affairs Manager. We also have Brad Norman, who is a Senior Market Specialist. As Deputy Goodwin said, we are here to share some information about electric charging stations. Hopefully you all know that we want to be more than just your electric provider. We want to be partners with you in the community as we continue to develop and grow. And we see these opportunities for charging stations as a way to continue to support this community, not only our citizens and visitors, but as you look at the state, a way for us, Columbus, to be a part of the connectivity across the state. So with that, I will turn it over to Brad Norman, who is going to share more information about our charging stations. Thank you again.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having us. Can we keep the presentation up as a guide? So really today, the opportunity, we can go down any rabbit hole about this technology and how quickly it's advancing and the year-over-year significant growth of electrification and the money that's being poured into state governments. We are not California. We do not have mandates or legislative support, but I am extremely proud of the work that the state of Georgia has done in deploying this infrastructure, because this is truly an opportunity of This is really truly an opportunity that if you build it, they will come. Without charging stations, the cars have no way of fuel, therefore no way of traveling. So today's an opportunity to kind of give a snapshot of this charging infrastructure in the Columbus and Muskogee area. Bring awareness to, as the Deputy City Council mentioned, the station at 11th and Broadway, and a unique opportunity about how Georgia Power is leading away in deploying infrastructure across the state, and an opportunity to bring more stations to this city. So really quickly, I'd have to go through a quick EV charging 101. While these all deliver a charge to a vehicle, it's truly driven by the application and the speed at which it delivers that charge. And so we can get very deep into the nuances of this technology and the different architecture behind the charging stations and some of the fallacies that are out there. But a lot of the research that Georgia Power has done through our own testing behind our fence and then our deployments with our customers, we have a lot of experience in representing the right product, right product for the right application. And so primarily today we're going to talk about 208 volt charging, level 2 stations, and the 480 volt fast charging, which you do have the one down on 11th and Broadway. So on the left side of the screen, you have these orange dots. Those are fast chargers. This is a publicly available source of information for you at plugshare.com. It's a user-owned app that lists all charging stations. It's highly filtered. But the fast chargers are predominantly available to help connect communities. That session is going to last in between 15 and 45 minutes. On the right side of the screen, you have the green dots. Those are your level 2 chargers. That's traditionally what you might find at a city center, a office building, or a retail establishment, somewhere where a person will be spending time roughly between an hour to 3 hours of time. And then down at Fort Benning, they do have a number of level 2s that they have as restricted access. So when we think about EV adoption over the next couple of years and doing predictive modeling based on income, highway corridor travel patterns, there are any number of metrics that go into this. We do see continued growth in the Muskogee County and downtown Columbus area. The blue dots represent existing registrations. To date, there's been over 35,000 EV registrations. I would say there's roughly around 25,000 active. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Georgia lost its state tax credit a few years back. And so I want to bring awareness to 2 projects that are currently underway. On the right side of the screen, you see the blue star. That is an active construction project. That project is being funded by Georgia Power. The Public Service Commission saw the leadership of Georgia Power's pilot program from 2014, where we deployed 37 fast chargers across the state. And when you think about the high cost of investment of fast charging technology, over $100,000 per site on average, the utilities really have an opportunity to bring these stations to cities and connect the state of Georgia. And so with Schuster's Enterprise, a Columbus-based enterprise, we are putting the 2 fast chargers at the Burger King, and that project should be completed by the end of this week. I understand that they mounted the equipment today and are calling in final inspection tomorrow. And that's on Bradley Drive, or Bradley Park exit. And then at the Target, same street, Tesla is planning a supercharger infrastructure project in early next year. That project's been on the books for over a year now, but just working through the process of permitting and getting the project lined up, we expect that to go to construction early next year. But I do want to pay attention to the station in downtown Columbus that you see is marked publicly with the maintenance symbol. That station has been out of service for the last year. In large part, that is due to the issues with the station was donated, so there's really been no financial investment into the upkeep of that station. There has been a breakup, so to speak, between the network and the hardware manufacturer. So think about your cellular plan not working with your phone manufacturer. And so really this has been a detriment to that driver experience, as drivers are depending on this station to meet their travel needs. And so here's a picture of the station, again donated in 2015 by Headquarters Nissan, installed it with some funding, some DOE funding at that time as well. It is only one charging station. It is considered a fast charger, and what is unique about this station is it's powered at 208 volt, which is an uncommon voltage for fast charging, and really there's very limited options to do a replacement at that same voltage and get that same speed. It would be a significant cost either to the city or to the utility to bring in 480 to that spot. And so I do want to present an option to you. If it was asked of what could we do to rip and replace that unit, Georgia Power brought a contractor on site that's fully vetted. We could remove that station, a turnkey project, and put in 5 years of network and warranty services through a vertically integrated company, and that cost would be roughly $19,000. The city would retain ownership. They would just contract directly with Georgia Power's vendor. But I think the unique opportunity is, given that the PSC has allotted $6 million to Georgia Power over the next 2.5 years to continue its deployment of utility-owned and operated infrastructure, I am making the offer that Georgia Power assume that metered service point, where we would then take on those energy costs, and we would cover the cost of that equipment and operations for a 10-year period. It is no longer a fast charger. It is a level 2. Again, going back to the application and the nuances that is 208 volt service, not 480. And so there's a quick depiction of what that would look like. We do call out for a custom painting of those spaces as green. We know that the stencil there is almost completely worn, and that as vehicles park over just a regular stencil, it is blocked and can't be seen. We're proponents for signage and obviously putting in some sort of protective device as bollards. It's also interesting to note that charging station today, as it was currently installed, does not meet code. There is no external breaker or disconnect should there be an event. And so we would bring that up to code by relocating that meter service. It's currently behind the existing station on a very low mount pedestal. We would keep it in close proximity and bring it up to code. Again, Georgia Power is willing to bring forth a contractor that can do that work on behalf of the city, or Georgia Power can assume that station, make those improvements through our community charging program, much like is being funded at the Burger King on Bradley Park. And lastly, when you look at the state of Georgia and the need for infrastructure, I believe it's exit 7 on I-185 near Columbus State University has been identified as another needed location for fast charging infrastructure. My role in the electric transportation, among many of the hats that I wear, is leading this program. I am actively scouting this investment of $6 million, running it as a business to make sure that we prudently spend these dollars to get as many stations in the ground. We think this $6 million is going to net somewhere between 30 to 35 stations across the state. And Columbus is in desperate need of this infrastructure when you think about the corridor travel north and south from Metro Atlanta down to the Panhandle. And for that, I really open up for questions.
So Mr. Mayor and Council, let me first of all thank Georgia Power for being here. I actually, Mayor, was having a lunch with Jay Alexander. We all know Jay, and with Lisa Smith and with you, Mayor, in a different location at the table. And we were talking about charging stations. And of course, I don't think he minds me saying he drives an electrical powered vehicle. And we were talking about where he could charge at, and we were talking about the Atlanta area, and then you start talking about Augusta, and you start talking about Savannah, And there he was on his cell phone showing me the charging stations in all these other communities. And then he was showing me what we have in Columbus. And it wasn't a good look. It certainly got my attention because we should have, as the second largest city, all of the benefits and amenities that they have in Augusta and Savannah and even in the metro area. And so Lisa Smith started talking to me about Georgia Power and their program, and we convened a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks thereafter, and they started sharing with me what the future looks like for Columbus. And so we end up here today, and of course, you know, we were proud of the one that we had on 11th and Broad downtown, and it's no longer functional. And you've talked about how we can bring that one back. And certainly, I'm interested, I hope we're interested in making sure that we're not left out when it comes to technology, and because we've got people here with electrical vehicles, and we don't want them to have to go all the way to Dublin somewhere to get a fast charge.
LaGrange.
And, well, LaGrange, I know that when we were talking about who has it and who does not. And LaGrange and Dublin, I believe, also got some stuff. And I'm like, why not Columbus? And so here we are. And so you were mentioning the 19K to get the station back to where it needs to be.
Should the city wish to retain ownership of charging infrastructure, because you are paying for that metered service?
Yes.
It would be roughly a $19,000 cost to rip and replace, bring up to code, put in new hardware, put on a 5-year network and warranty package on that. You would retain ownership of that. You would collect those session revenues from those drivers who interact with that station. Or the alternative is to fold it into the Georgia Power program, and we would assume those costs.
Sure. So I wanted him to say that again because, I mean, I'm always interested, in Georgia Power assuming cost.
Well, I'll tell you this. So when I looked at this opportunity, my focus is on fast charging. This opportunity in downtown Columbus is not a fast charger replacement because of the voltage issues there. I'm looking at this as a way to bring the Georgia Power program, take on the cost to upgrade that service as well, and really fold that in as we look to connect communities and enable its adoption.
So, Mayor and Council, I wanted to have this conversation because I was hopeful that you are in agreement that we don't need to be looking in the rearview mirror or looking at other communities, LaGrange and others, who can service their citizens with these types of vehicles, and we don't have the infrastructure in place in our amazing Columbus, Georgia. So I'll yield, and maybe you guys have.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. Karen, my wife, used to have a total electric vehicle about 5-6 years ago. And we had to, I mean, it was kind of a thrill ride trying to plan to go to LaGrange to recharge, and then go to, I think there was one in Noonan, just around Noonan, Union City. You could recharge there, and then you could recharge anywhere in Atlanta. But yeah, we definitely need to have more options. Councilor Crabb?
Thank you. Do you have an estimated annual income on one of these charging stations?
Right, so I get that question often, even when I'm working in the private market of putting infrastructure. There should be no delusion that these stations pay for themselves through that session revenue. At best, you will cover your energy and your operating costs. When you're charging $1 an hour on a $19,000 investment, that's a long payback time. I can pull some like-kind history from the existing stations deployed across the state in like communities, but it's nothing to get excited about.
Thank you.
Councilor Woodson?
Yes, I would like to ask the city manager or yourself, are we looking for a motion today to approve this?
No, just conversation today, and if there's direction. is this something you're interested in? And if so, then we as staff can pursue it and then bring back some proposals and options to you. I just want to be on cutting edge. I don't want to trail other similar size communities because we're better than they are.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. That's the reason why I'm saying it. I would like, staff to continue, city manager to do research and see. I tend to agree with you. I know several people in Columbus that have Teslas and have these electronic cars that do complain that when they're going to travel or they're passing through Columbus, they can't charge here. So I'm ready to vote in favor of it, but you can go do the research and then bring it back to us and bring it back in the form of a vote.
Yeah, well, we wanted them to answer any questions for you, but as I was talking to Jay, it's amazing how they will plan their trip their route will take them through a city where they can get a fast charge, which means, we stop in LaGrange or we go the other way and around to get the fast charge so that we can do what we need to do. I want them to stop in Columbus to get the fast charge. And so, I mean, if there are no questions or comments, then we're continuing to pursue this and we'll bring back proposals and or options to you that we can make sure we do what we need to do.
I think it's definitely worth bringing back. We still have a couple more comments. Councilor House?
I was going to make a motion that we do it, but I'll wait till the staff comes back with the plan.
All right, Councilor Davis?
Yes, great presentation. Who covers the cost of the electricity?
Through the community charging program, Georgia Power covers it as one of our company use facilities, no different than our operating headquarters.
Just a different entity than the city?
Yes, sir. Georgia Power would assume that meter point is one of our own.
Are there reciprocal agreements that have been made with EV companies?
I don't understand.
Is Georgia Power doing reciprocal agreements with all the EV companies that are out there? Are there exclusives, anything like that?
There are no exclusives. The adapter or the charging stations are universal in nature in terms of the plug. Georgia Power does extensive amount of R&D. We are agnostic to the technology, but our brand is reliability. And so as this technology continues to evolve, we have to make sure that those stations that are being deployed under our brand are going to meet the needs of our customers and are highly reliable. And that's why when we look at vertically integrated with the network and the equipment, we're seeing a lot of success there. I think the station downtown is an example of when one party parts ways, from the manufacturer parts ways with the network services. That's when you've got finger pointing at who's responsible for repairing it. And when it was donated equipment, there's no investment to do so.
So there would be no hindrance, say another company wants to come in and create a supercharging station in Columbus. We have the option of doing that as well.
So in reference to the word exclusivity, when Georgia Power signs its license agreement, for example, the one with Schuster's that's under construction, we do have an exclusivity clause with that property owner that Georgia Power or that station is the only charging station on the premises, as it would erode our utilization to have another station on site. Now, there has been examples in Metter, Georgia, where we have removed such exclusivity clause because it was in the best interest of that community where Georgia Power and Tesla are serving the same fueling center.
Mr. Mayor, maybe it's just me and my hearing, but I'm having problems hearing today with, from my perspective. I think I just understood what you said, but what you just said was that if you've got agreements with property owners, then you've got exclusives with them. But hey, any other EV company can come into town and do a deal with another private property owner or the city, and they can create their own infrastructure.
That's absolutely correct. The Georgia Power Community Charging Program is centered around site host acquisition with license agreements with individual parcels. It's not community-based or it's not exclusive to any one community. It's unique to that parcel and that parcel only.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Councilor Thomas. Hang on. There we go. There you go.
Mr. City Manager, I hope that as you are exploring this, you keep in mind locations for these charging stations. I would like to see them where it's easy to get to. If you're one of these folks who lives somewhere else and you specifically drive through Columbus in order to charge, that it's easy to get to, and it's probably by a restaurant, so you could have lunch or
Yes.
dinner
That's
or
the idea.
whatever.
That's the idea.
You know, and I think that really is an important slice of this planning that we may do, is to make it easily accessible and give the services that are around that you might need if you're on one of these trips.
Yes, I agree.
If I may add, the pillars of how we site these locations across the state of Georgia are based on visibility, convenience to shopping and dining. So back to the question about the financials, it's not the charging station of itself. The economics are driving that local business to shop and dine while those vehicles are charging. We look at safety, we look at accessibility and convenience to those highway corridors as well, travel patterns.
And it's not just, well, I mean, it's coming in from Alabama, it's coming in from Newnan, it's coming in from wherever Macon that you happen to be, that we need, I think we need to have those stations so that they're easily accessible.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, outstanding.
Well, and so, Mayor, if there are no other questions, we will be in touch, and I'm sure that we will work towards, we'll be able to work together on this.
Wonderful. Thanks for your time.
Next, Mayor, I've got Engineering Director Donna Newman. We've got some guests to talk about Riverwalk, Gabion Wall replacement.
Good afternoon. I have with me today Barge Design Solutions, and they're our on-call engineers that primarily work on our stormwater infrastructure flooding type projects. Today, we're here to talk to you about the Gabion Wall that you may have seen along the Riverwalk in the proximity of the Synovus building. This has been a problem area for us due to the frequent flooding of the river and the erosion that occurs. And they'll show you the some locations related to that where you'll get a better idea where it's at. But when we originally did the Gabion Wall, the plan was, the request was to have an area for viewing and for seating for events that may be held in the river. And the plan was to have a vegetation landscape included in the basket area, and that was part of the stability of the Gabion baskets. But the vegetation was eliminated due to maintenance in that area, and so there was some failure that occurred during one of our frequent flooding events. So what we did was we engaged Barge and asked them to look at potential solutions, and then in doing so, we again asked them, because this is one of our prominent spots along the Riverwalk where there is an opportunity to have seating and viewing area for events. And so we asked them to consider that in looking at solutions when we got to a more permanent type design.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. So my name is David Bishop with Barge Design Solutions. This is a project that we're very close in proximity to our office, so we walk the walk. I walk the Riverwalk a lot, and it's something I've seen progress over the last couple of years. And you know, in talking with Ms. Newman and Ms. Hodge and City Manager as well, this is something we kind of brought to their attention. And if you've been down here, it'll be something that you will probably have noticed. But just to make sure everybody understands where this is located, as you see in the picture here, this is the section that's directly in front of the Synovus building, located between 12th and 11th Street. And as she mentioned, this is a location that is highlighted for the City of Columbus in many photos and all of marketing all over the state that you see in magazine stuff. And so what people don't realize is what's in that slope is there's a large interceptor sewer line. It's a 54-inch sewer line that slope protects. And that's what conveys all the combined sewer system of downtown Columbus through. So it's, number one, the Riverwalk is a destination, a prized possession of Columbus, but it is there to support critical infrastructure. And so we don't want anything happening to that, because that would be an environmental issue that we don't want to be dealing with. So I'll go into, so I'm going to turn this over to Scott here just to kind of talk about it. But what I want to make sure everybody kind of understands, look at this with, is we felt like, and we'll get into ideas, but we wanted to take the opportunity, if we're going to go and touch this, we want to touch it for the last time, don't have to go back in it again, but also take advantage of of an opportunity to really highlight Columbus. So Scott, if you want to kind of run through these.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Thompson. These first couple slides will just be a depiction of more or less the current state of these baskets, and you can see, as Ms. Newman was referring to, the baskets were intended to have vegetation growing on the basket portion along the front, and that's what retains the soil. When that vegetation failed, what happens is, as the river rises during storm events, and then particularly when it recedes, it sucks the soil out from underneath through the basket cages, basically compromising the foundation of those baskets. And they're stacked one on top of the other in a terraced format. And once the lower basket fails, it's a domino effect as you go up the slope. You can see some of the damage here from these events. This picture on the left shows a straight-on view of the baskets, and what you're looking at is about 4 basket cages that are supposed to be stacked on top of each other, each about 2 feet tall. And you can see it's a little hard to tell, but the lowest is sunk down to probably only 4 inches above grade. So it has sunken into the slope that far, and it just continues to get worse with each storm event. So what we do on investigating a solution is we go out and we get a soils report. We did borings to get the soils of that slope, and then we also survey the slope. And what you're looking at here is a survey scan that we did of this site. And this is not a drawing or rendering. This is everything you see depicted is a point that scanner collects. And it's so detailed, it's billions of points, and it basically creates a photo image. So this is kind of the base model of what we use. And what we did was we used that to develop some proposed renderings. And we went through a couple internal meetings with engineering and also some Uptown and Dragonfly folks, people of interest, and received their feedback and went back and did some official renderings on how to address some of those comments, particularly how will this area be used? Can it be used for seating? Can there be shade? Really just tried to make it a useful area that solves a big problem. And like David said, a one-time fix. Some different views. It's hard to tell. I think on the next one you can see there's concrete seating, benches basically formed along the wall area where the people are walking along the terraces. So you can sit underneath those umbrellas, and those umbrellas would be a removable umbrella so that they could be removed, because this area all becomes underwater during a flood, which happens pretty regularly at the lower levels. There you can get a better view of the benches under that umbrella off to the left. But really, this area, we just for a viewing of the river. The area in the center is what we would call stadium seating. They're 18-inch tall steps, so you wouldn't use them as walking steps, but more or less like a amphitheater you could use for seating. And the sewer line still remains up in the upper slope that would remain grassed above the wall. Just some quick options that we've looked at as far as finishing for the wall. You could have just a smooth concrete. These walls would be poured in place concrete. So you know your typical smooth concrete. You can have a more like a stamped concrete, which the forms have the moldings in them. So when you pour the concrete, it leaves you with a block or a stone finish. And then obviously you could do a veneer. This is significantly more costly, but it is an option. This is an example up in LaGrange of, back on the renderings, we wanted to depict something on the wall, whether it be, City of Columbus or consolidated government, some sort of something signifying this landmark in the city. And this is an example, a real-life example of what we were thinking for that. And go ahead.
So just to kind of highlight, can I go back to the presentation, please? Just wanted to highlight, this was what I mentioned about the example. This is an opportunity to, instead of having something that's just plain concrete, we're already going to be forming concrete, to really have that visual of, hey, here is Columbus, and that can have a City of Columbus established date. It could, something that, because if, the Snovis, they get unbelievable marketing from that photo because their name is on that building in every photo in Columbus. And it'd be nice to be able to have that signifying, the downtown, the Riverwalk. And, with the rapids that come through here, this is another, destination a lot of people come to, and just having that, if you see a lot of people on their social media when they're taking pictures, when they visit, especially with the military, when they're coming down the Riverwalk, they take pictures. Typically, that's the background that you see. So it was just an opportunity to take advantage of something that we were already going to be doing to protect that slope, but also make it useful for the community. But also, let's make this a permanent fix that, will be here as long as I'm alive. So that's all we had, and we're open for any questions that you may have.
It looks great. I'm nervous about the sticker, but it looks amazing. The wall, I guess, is the height of what our average flood level is when it comes in.
Yes, sir. So that upper wall is the upper limits.
The whole idea was to make sure that we're stabilized and then make it look like something people will want to congregate at as a side benefit.
Yes, sir. And what people don't really realize on slopes, they're a little bit different, is the toe of that slope is the most critical point. If you lose the toe, everything sloughs and falls. So that's what we really wanted to make sure we're locking in. That's the reason why we're going more the full concrete to where we can lock that in, because as y'all well know, we've had a significant floods in the last 3 or 4 years that has compromised that, and so we want to make sure we can protect that.
Well, like I said, it looks great. Good work.
And Mr. Mayor, we will be coming back to you and the council. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, this is more of the conceptual. We just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of what we were looking at, and we'll obviously, in coordination with Ms. Newman, with some design milestones.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Mr. Mayor, I've got the Finance Director up next. Just to give a quick sales tax update, last month we gave you the June sales tax update, and now we have the July sales tax numbers.
Good afternoon. So as the presentation is being pulled up, as the city manager mentioned, I gave a quick update last month on where we closed out FY20. This is just a quick update on where we are right now with FY21. And the only month we have to report right now is July 2020. Sales tax is up 3.31%. Sales tax collections received in OLOS is $3.31 million and $3.31 million in lost revenue for July 2020. This is up 4.6% over FY20. So good, numbers for July, the start of the new fiscal year, us being up approximately 147,000 over where we were in July of 2019. Unfortunately, this month I do not have the sales tax industry mix. That information was not available on the Department of Revenue's website just as of yet. I will hopefully have that information for you all just so you can see the makeup of the sales tax increases sales tax collections that we received for July. I'll have that at the next council meeting when I give the standard finance update. But this sales tax summary for July of 2020 is for select counties throughout the state of Georgia. We have some comparables here. Macon Bibb being down 25.80%, which is pretty substantial. Chatham County, there are several municipalities that make up Chatham County. Most notably, the city of Savannah is currently down 6.07%. Again, Clark County, which is another consolidated government, so Athens, Clark, their sales tax lost revenue being down 5.07%. For Fulton County, there are several cities that make up Fulton County. Again, most notably the city of Atlanta, with their sales tax collection being down almost 7%. Some other cities in Fulton County, which was Roswell, Sandy Springs being down 6.99%, Johns Creek being down 7.02%, and College Park being down 6.83%. Lastly, here in terms of the select counties, we have Augusta Richmond, with the Augusta Richmond, which is down 5.89%. And so, as you can see here, just with these select counties, it varies. I run reports and basically pull a listing from all of the counties in Georgia, and I pick these out specifically to provide an update on. But as you can see here with what has been provided, and really across the board for a lot of the counties in Georgia, they're down, and fortunately for us, we are actually up. So we do hope that trend sort of continues. If we're not up, to say the least, hopefully we'll be where we were at that point last year. And so this chart here just shows that projection. We collected $3.31 million in July, and if we collect the exact same amount for every month going forward that we did for the prior fiscal year, we end up at about $37.5 million in sales tax collections. Again, that's only if we collect the exact same amount, no more, no less. So fiscal year to date right now, sales tax is up 4.6%, and that is the sales tax update.
So Mr. Mayor, we really don't know how to explain this, but it's good news for us especially when you look at the others. I think Angelica selects cities she knows I like to compete against, but it's good news for us, and it's scary because if she was calculating the numbers herself rather than those direct deposits into our account, I would really be questioning why we're up and others are down significantly. But they just wire transfer us the money or into our account, and we hope that the deposits are accurate.
Well, listen, it is a little bit unnerving when it's hard to put your finger on what is generating a little bit of an increase in a world full of decreases, and I hope it continues. I really personally think it's going to. I think Columbus, Georgia had a lot of momentum going into this pandemic. And I think things like we saw last week with a groundbreaking for a new Mercer Medical School. It's going to bring in, we'll end up with almost 250 students, close to 100 faculty and scientists, all kinds of economic development opportunities coming from that. We still have construction of hotels going on. We've got the bank's food hall that we're hopeful is going to be up and running shortly. And, I think we are going to get, because of this community, I think we're going to get some of that momentum back quickly. And it's, keep bringing good news.
Yeah. So. Well, I just credit the leadership of a great mayor and a great city council,
Well, I'm almost afraid to hear from our budget chair, but she has the floor.
Mr. City Manager, as you will recall, we have scheduled in 3 weeks the budget overview, if you will, or working with the add delete list from the budget. I would request that Ms. Alexander send council that add delete list fairly soon. Don't wait until that the week before. Send it to us so that we can be looking at it and making sure that with this information we can make some appropriate decisions about what we want to do with the budget, if anything. And wow. I will say, I know that you've said this before, this is specifically to deal with the add delete list, not new requests for funding. That may come later, but in the on the September 29th, I think it is, it's specifically to deal with the add delete list. So if we could get that within the next week or so, I think that would be very helpful for us as we make plans for what we're going to be doing.
Sure.
Okay.
And I will have some recommendations at that time as well that I'm hearing from economists. So we'll share that later. The last item today, and I've delayed the options and process for street naming, but the last item today is the CARES Act update. We wanted to give you a brief update. We've got good news with that as well. And so Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Just a brief update on where we are with the CARES Act. As you all know, it was passed on March 27th, and it was $2 trillion worth of economic relief for the COVID-19 pandemic. So our Phase 1 allocation was $10,248,000. We did receive the 30% advance, which was just over $3 million. The remaining 70% funding is over $7 million. That was allocated to us, the 30% on August the 3rd. We did receive the 70% allocation on September the 2nd. These were to be expended by September 1st, and so we had met all of those deadlines and requirements related to that Phase 1 funding. And so those have both been submitted, approved. We've received those funds. We have those in our bank account. Those included public safety payroll, specifically for frontline fire, EMS, and the police department. And those were all FY20 related expenditures, except for a portion of July 3rd's payroll. Again, Phase 2 and Phase 3, the balance of that is about $24 million. We plan to have city expenses utilized for that balance, as well as community expenses. Marquette McKnight is here, and she'll give you just a brief update on what they've been going through to get those community applications in. We have received no guidance from the state at this point for Phase 2 and Phase 3 funding, so we are just awaiting direction and guidelines on how we can submit and move forward with that particular phase. We did hire media, marketing, and more, led by Marquette McKnight, to handle that community process, to gather those applications, and she'll kind of briefly walk through what they went through as far as their process that they did. They did receive 467 applications that they have vetted, $7.2 million worth of expenditures to date. As of yesterday, about $3.4 million of what was submitted has been determined to be eligible. They still have some review to do. And so at this time, I'll bring forward Marquette, and she can just give you a brief update on the process that they went through.
Thank y'all, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I will be unusually brief because I know y'all have been sitting here as long as I have. So I will say I've been amazed at the capability and the ability to move through this huge project in such a small amount of time between the two deputy city managers and the finance director. Under the direction, of course, the city manager, has just been an amazing process. We put together a great finance team to help us review these applications. As Pam already pointed out, the numbers of the applications that we got, we were still reviewing as of yesterday, and those numbers that you just saw have increased a little bit already this morning. As we turn over everything today at 4 o'clock to the finance director for entry into the portal of the state. And to echo what Pam said, with very little direction about how we're actually going to enter all this data that we have into the portal. But I just want to tell you one thing about this that I have learned in this, and there are many stories to be told after all this is over. And of course it will be, as we told all the applicants, this will be public information, just like anything else that you're spending tax dollars on, that this will be public information to our wider community. But one thing that has struck me so much in this process, we talk a lot about what a generous community Columbus is, and it is. And as the past chair of the Community Foundation and working with lots of clients, I know this to be a wonderfully generous community. But when we talk about how generous our community is, we're generally thinking about how the wealthy or people of means give to our community. And what we have seen in these applications is that it's not the wealthy who are giving to the least of us. When Adrian Chester gave the invocation this morning, and he noted that verse that talks about doing unto the least of them, you've got hundreds of organizations in Columbus who are on small budgets, but who are giving to the least of them, who are taking care of the truly needy and the truly poor, the truly downtrodden in our community. They are giving their all. They're giving what they don't have to our community and to our residents who are not as fortunate as many of us are in this room. It's been very heartening and very illuminating about how generous our community is on both sides of the spectrum. And I think a lot of that does credit our city council and the way that they have led this city in helping with this CARES Act, in sharing that money. Not only, we've had several counties surrounding us that are not sharing their CARES money with their community, with businesses and healthcare and medical and community assistance. And you have done that, and I'm grateful to have helped you with that process, along with the triumvirate, as I refer to the three women that we have worked with. And we look forward to giving y'all a really good report today, hopefully, that we're turning all that information over and to seeing this through to help the citizens of our community. I'd be glad to answer any questions if y'all have any.
Well, Marquette, thank you for your work. I know it has been in a really condensed time period. And the fact that we monitor those, see how the reports coming in, and we were one of the first ones that got everything entered correctly. We didn't really have any kickbacks that I understand of any importance. Everything went through very smoothly, and that's a testament, I think, to the entire team who's working on it, including yours. So thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, that's a report today, but as you can see, and I was glad that Marquette McKnight highlighted that there are some communities where they just didn't make any of these dollars available to local businesses and nonprofits and so forth, but you did. We did. And you can see that we're going to be funding anywhere from $3.4 to $7.2 million. We have $24 million left. And I can tell you, certainly, our city government can absorb the $24 million, but certainly what's left, the $16 to $20 million, we will absorb that with little effort. And our goal will be to go after any remaining dollars that flow back into the state where other communities do not use their money, or there's additional monies that the state has that they can make available to communities. We can justify it, we can use it. But I, again, want to thank our team, the two deputy city managers, Lisa Goodwin, Pam Hodge, and our finance director. They've been a dynamic team, and I think we made a good selection of a community partner to work with in media marketing and more, and she assembled, Marquette McKnight assembled a team, and they have worked together. We wanted to make sure the process was fair and that it was they could respond to the time constraint that we were dealing with, and we wanted to make sure that we can justify every single decision and how it was done. And Marquette and her team has positioned us to do that, and so they've done a great job, and we look forward to your final report. So Mayor and Council will answer any questions that you have. We have the team here. We have Marquette here. We'll answer any questions.
Doesn't appear to be any.
Okay. Thank you. That is my final update. Mayor and Council, I would like an executive session on personnel matters.
Okay. Councilor Thomas?
Mr. City Manager, I've had a couple of requests from employees asking if our HR department would put something out to the employees and to the rest of us too about the payroll tax cut, how that will work, what that means. I was hesitant to answer any questions because I don't want to give the wrong information, but they've asked if we would put something out. I know that it has to be repaid. What does that mean? Those kinds of questions. So if you could do that, it would. I don't need it today. I don't need it here, but I would like to see it in the next few days if we can, to put it out to employees and put it on the website.
Okay, and so we can certainly do that, but I'd like for you to make 2 or 3 sentences. Because the finance director, when I saw it, she says, I don't recommend that, and just your quick observations, 2 or 3 sentences will do.
Right, certainly, Mr. City Manager.
And your mask.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes. Certainly, as the city manager mentioned, that would not be a program that I would recommend for employees to participate in, simply because it has to be paid back. Currently, we have system limitations right now. Our software vendor is working on some coding change to the system to be able to even implement this. So currently, right now, due to system limitations, we're not able to participate. And I do believe that is one of the things, I think the city attorney mentioned that we could opt in or opt out of the program. I mean, it would certainly be something that I would not recommend to employees just because of the payback feature that's attached to it.
And so we'll give you more information later, but I wanted them to hear that the payback is would be concerning, because we don't want to put employees in a position that it's not good for them.
For example, one of the questions I was asked was, does the employee get to opt in and out, or is it the employer who opts in and out? So those are some of just the nuances
Sure.
of what.
And we'll come back with all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, that concludes my agenda, except for the executive session.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. For the clerk's agenda, item 1 are minutes of various boards to be received.
Motion that the minutes are received. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Woodson, and it was moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, say no. They're approved. They're received.
Next, we have board appointments. First, we have the mayor's appointments, Pension Fund Employees Board of Trustees.
And I have one for Mr. Staples, Dusty Wilson. I'll get you his bio. I'll send it over. I got it in my office. I'll send it to you today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. He may be confirmed.
There's a motion to confirm from the Mayor Pro Tem. Second from Councilor House. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? He's confirmed.
Next, we have council appointments that are ready for confirmation. For the Animal Control Advisory Board, Dr. Jean Wagaspak was nominated.
Motion to confirm from the Mayor Pro Tem. Second from Councilor Woodson. All in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? She is confirmed.
Councilor Allen, Mayor Pro Tem is asking to confirm
There is a motion to
B
confirm
through E.
all of those individuals listed in items B through E. There's a second from Councilor Woodson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Yes, ma'am. It was to confirm on the Board of Honor Judge Bobby Peters, on the Board of Honor Ms. Barbara Pierce, Board of Honor Mr. Robert Poitachef, and Uptown Facade Board Mr. Robert Battle, all nominated and seconded. So all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? They are all confirmed.
Next, we have council district seat appointments for the Public Safety Advisory Commission, open for nominations for District 2, 4, and 6. For District 10, Councilor House is nominating Alexander King to succeed Tyson Begley. He may be confirmed.
There's a motion to confirm from Mayor Pro Tem, second from Councilor House. All in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? He's confirmed.
Next, we have council appointments. Any nominations would be listed for the next meeting. For the Animal Control Advisory Board, we have Dr. Renee LaFranc. This is the Veteran Association representative, as well as Carla Anthony. This seat is open for nominations. Councilor House is nominating Julie Fryer to succeed Carol Bassett, and we will bring this back for the next meeting for confirmation. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We have a request to go into executive session to discuss personnel. And is there anything else, Mr. City Attorney? And litigation. Personnel and litigation. All right. Motion to go into executive session by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? All right. Second from Councilor House. All in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? All right. We're in executive session. All right, we have been in executive session. We discussed personnel, litigation, and a security issue, and no votes were taken. Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I did want to make mention for those of you that have known longtime City Councilor Red McDaniel, who passed away a few years back, his wife, Jo, passed away this past weekend. So hopefully you'll keep the family in your prayers. But she was one of the South's truly gracious ladies, and she will be missed. But with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, motion second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Anybody opposed say no. We're adjourned.
「国勢調査の締め切りまであと1ヶ月です」「もうご回答いただきましたか？10年に一度の国勢調査はアメリカの未来を形作るための大切な調査です。郵便、オンライン、あるいは電話の日本語サポートで簡単に回答ができます。より良い未来のためにアメリカに住む私たち全員の存在を数字で示しましょう。よろしくお願いします。
Hi, I've been counted in the 2020 U.S. Census. Many of the services that you and I use on a daily basis are determined by census results. Please do your part and make sure that everyone in your house is counted, including children and anyone who lives there. You can do the census online, over the phone, or by mail. It's easy and only takes about 5 minutes. In Columbus, Georgia, everyone counts.
Hola, mi nombre es Sam y soy contada en el centro de los Estados Unidos. Muchos de los servicios y programas que usamos cotidianamente están determinados a los resultados del censo. Por favor, haga su parte y asegúrese que la casa, incluido niños y personas que viven con usted, están contados. Inscríbase en línea, por teléfono o por correo. Se puede concluir en menos de 5 minutos. En Columbus, Georgia, todos cuentan.